This is the Metal Roofing Learning Channel, brought to you by Western States Metal Roofing, one of the industry's best manufacturers of metal roofing and siding. With over 110 different colors and finishes to choose from, discover why architects, designers, and contractors make Western States Metal Roofing their go-to source. Download a free color catalog today and learn how you can save by buying factory direct at westernstatesmetalroofing.com.
So today I'm with Jennifer Jones with Ohana Dwellings, and we're here to talk about ADUs. So why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself, Jennifer, and about your company?
Sure. So I'm Jennifer Jones, like you said. I'm the founder of Ohana Dwellings. We started in 2019, and we help people streamline the ADU build process.
So Jennifer, let me start from the beginning. What is an ADU?
That's a great question. So an ADU is an accessory dwelling unit, and it's a secondary house on the same property as the primary residence. It can take a couple different forms of either a converted garage, a new structure, or an addition to the existing home. It offers flexible solutions for, say, an aging family member or a rental unit to generate additional income. It also helps with increasing affordable housing.
I know in California, ADUs are very popular. Do you see ADUs gaining popularity in all across the United States or just in certain regions?
So California, Washington, and Oregon have all been at the forefront of this whole ADU revolution. I see them going up all over the United States, actually international. It's actually been an international thing for quite a while now, but a lot more states are taking California's lead and moving forward with ADUs because we all need more housing. We all need more affordable housing.
What specific categorize a structure as an ADU?
So it's a secondary structure. You have your primary residence, and then you have a secondary structure. So that's one of the characteristics. Number two, it's a complete living facility. So that would be, there's a kitchen of some sort, there's a bathroom, and there is a bedroom of sorts. It could be, doesn't have to be walled, but there has to be a sleeping area. So someone has to be able to live and dwell in this independently from the main house.
So it does have to be separated from the main house?
Yes. Well, it has to be a separate contained unit. It can be attached to the house, but it has to be a separate contained unit.
Separate door, separate entrance, etc.
Exactly. Yeah. So the size and scale, they're typically smaller than the primary residence. The location is it's on the lot of the primary residence. The ownership is typically owned by the primary residence or the primary owner. However, that is a really evolving, interesting topic that is kind of going through some changes. I know they're trying to make laws where you can sell the ADU separate from the primary residence, but that's definitely check your local area because that's a highly evolving issue right now. So
here's another question that might depend on jurisdiction to jurisdiction, but does the owner need to live in the ADU to be able to have an ADU or rent out an ADU?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. So it totally depends on where you're at. Like I said, there's a wide range of issues and variances or variables when building an ADU. Sometimes you do have to live on the property, sometimes you don't. So it really depends on where you're building this ADU. And sometimes you can build two ADUs. You can build a junior ADU and you can build the regular ADU. So sometimes you can get two out of it.
Is that maybe more specific to your zoning? Like, for example, if you had R2 zoning, is that more likely for that kind of deal?
Yeah, that definitely affects it. And it really affects it if you're in, say, San Diego or if you're in Los Angeles, wherever you're at, as far as how aggressive they are in pushing ADUs and facilitating ADUs. Some jurisdictions are not into facilitating ADUs just yet. Some are very pro ADUs, so they're making it easier and easier, and they're giving you a wider lane, I would put it, to build ADUs.
So when you're building an ADU, I think you said earlier, the max you generally see is 1,200 square feet. What's the minimum that you normally see on an ADU?
So typically you're going to have a hard time fitting those living facilities, your bathroom, your bedroom of type, and a kitchen under 200 square feet. There are offices that people create, and they do have a bathroom. So you have backyard offices, which are a little bit different than ADUs, but you're going to have a really hard time fitting those essential living things with it, under 200 square feet. So you have to get those things within a, compact area. And then of course you have tiny homes. That's going to be a different zoning.
Yeah, if we're not talking tiny homes, I mean, I can't imagine many people are going to go through this expenditure for 200 square feet unless it's possibly an office. I mean, what's like the small side but still a reasonable ADU that you see? Is that 700 square feet? What's that magic number on the lower side?
No, I would say around 500. You can get a really decent, laid out, very livable ADU around 500. And there are different thresholds. A lot of times there'll be solar requirements for under, say, 750 or 500. So it's really important that you check your specific laws, because the solar, of course, will add additional cost to that. So a lot of times you'll try to go under that particular threshold, if you're on a certain type of budget. But to have a livable space, I would say probably around 500 square feet. It's a good benchmark.
Right. And then obviously the size of your property is going to dictate this.
Of course.
Is it going to dictate it from a livability standpoint, or are there setbacks, or a little bit of both?
Absolutely, yeah. So there's setbacks. That all depends on your jurisdiction. There's the footprint. So a lot of times, depending on the size of your lot, you'll have either, a one-story is going to be your cheapest option to build, or you'll have 2 stories where you can fit a garage underneath, say, or 2-story to create a bigger ADU with a smaller footprint. So it really depends on what you have to work with. ADUs are kind of a puzzle in a way. So you kind of have to plug in what your variables are and what's available in your particular area and what your budget and your uses will allow.
If you had the space, is it harder to get a 2-story ADU approved, or that doesn't really matter if you have setbacks in space?
No, as long as you're within the setbacks and the jurisdiction allows for that height, you can do it.
What are some other considerations when you're doing an ADU?
So the entrance that you touched on earlier, that's really important. It needs to have a separate entrance. There also needs to be parking for those occupants. That's something that you have to plan for as well. That's something that's going to be definitely on the minds of the permitting office. Where are these people going to park? Are they going to park on the street? Is it going to encroach on your neighbor's parking? A lot of times, if you're in an urban area and you're close to a bus stop or a train stop, they'll offer a variance for that. But most of the time, that's something that you really need to consider. Also, the design and appearance is really important. Most planning offices will want the design of the ADU to be consistent with the main house. They want a coherent look of the neighborhood. So those are 2 other factors that you should think about when you're looking at designs, thinking about what's going to fit in your yard, things like that.
I mean, I would imagine most of these are in the backyard or something along those lines.
Yes.
Could you put an ADU in the front yard? I mean, forget that it might not look right, but could you do it generally?
You can, as long as they're the setback, because you have a greater distance from the setback from the front street typically than you do from your back fence. So yes, but absolutely, if your lot allows for that, say it's like a flag lot and you have a lot, and your main residence is geared towards the back and you have a large chunk in the front, you could absolutely put an ADU in the front.
What are the main pros and cons of an ADU?
So the main pro, and it depends on what you're using the ADU for. So let's take one example. Let's say you are using it for a rental unit. The main pro would be additional income. So you would be able to get revenue from your property that you already have a mortgage on, that you're already paying for. So you're able to offset all those costs that are coming in all the time. Increase taxes, I don't have to go into all the different increases that we're seeing all the time. So that would be benefit number 1, would be more money. The benefit number 2 is it's going to increase your property value. So it's going to help when you do go to sell your house. That is going to help on, when you sell the house, to increase the property value. A con would be you're using up some of your yard. So, that space that you, 1, can't put a pool in if you want to put a pool in, or 2, say it's a grass area that your kids play on. That's somewhere that depends on the size of your lot. Sometimes it doesn't affect you, period, if you have a gigantic lot. But the reality is most of these are going in higher density areas and the lots are not that big. So that's a trade-off that you're going to have to consider, is losing that space in my yard. Number 2 would be it costs money to build. That's something that you're going to have to take into consideration. Number 3, you're going to have someone else living on your lot. So you're going to be dealing with someone on a daily basis that you're definitely going to want to take a good amount of time vetting the person that's going to be running your ADU. because you're going to be dealing with them. And, that's could be a good thing or a bad thing. They could be awesome, and you could have a, new friend or new neighbor. It also could be a nightmare.
Right.
So, that's kind of the reality of it. If you take scenario number 2, which would be a family member, probably will be a nightmare because it's so you'd be able to house your family member for more reasonable price. The cost of rents are just astronomical, especially in San Diego, especially in LA. It's becoming so unaffordable for most people to rent a house or build a house. This is a way for you to take care of your parent and have them close, but still have them separate.
Yeah.
Both
parties have privacy, which is important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's essential because they still, whether it's an aging parent or maybe a kid who's having a hard time finding a place to live because it's really difficult right now, especially with the interest rates. You're still able to give them that privacy and that autonomy, which both generations want. So they want that autonomy and that space. You need that space, right? For sure.
I know there's going to be a wide range of price considerations, but is there a ballpark on what it might cost per square foot for an ADU, maybe on the high side and maybe on the low side?
Yeah, sure. Everybody wants to know kind of, what that is. And typically, just like when you're building a regular home, it depends on the types of finishes that you choose, the type of architecture that you choose. There's also some other considerations as well. Just to give you a ballpark, $200 a square foot on the very, very low side is what you're looking at. And it can be $400, $500, $600 a square foot on the higher side. But it greatly, greatly fluctuates depending on what you've chosen, the location of the build. In urban areas, you're going to pay quite a bit for labor costs. Labor costs have just skyrocketed in the last couple of years. Material costs have skyrocketed in the last couple of years. Permitting, depending on where you live, there's going to be different pricing for permitting and all the licenses that go with that. So yeah, there's a lot of different variables that go into pricing an ADU. And then on top of that is your site. So do you have a flat lot? Do you have does it have to be graded and cut into a hill? That's going to add a lot of cost to that as well. How far the utility is going to have to be trenched? That's going to add a lot of cost as well. So it's very difficult to say, it's going to be $200 per square foot flat rate, because it's all kind of like I was saying earlier, it's a puzzle, and you have to kind of fit all these different pieces together to make the ADU come together.
If you had a middle of the road ADU as far as build materials and without major site considerations, is $400 kind of a realistic price in a lot of instances?
Yes. Yeah, $350, $400. That's very realistic.
Do you typically see the increase in property value being greater than the cost to build an ADU?
Yes. Typically, you do see the return on investment far outweigh the cost to build it. But of course, you have to be wise about the choices that you make when you build the ADU. So if you go crazy and you get all kinds of finishes, say imported Italian marble for your your countertops, you're going to have a really hard time getting that money out. Just like you would in any renovation. If you go, go crazy with upgrades, it's going to be difficult for the appraiser to go, I don't think I can give you this little value.
Yeah, so you build a nice middle-of-the-road ADU, and it's going to be profitable for you.
Yes, yeah, which is the reason why a lot of developers are doing this more and more on the lots, because it does increase the ROI. It's a really good investment for most situations. There's exceptions to everything, but we see, the more dense you can make the property, the more the ROI is typically going, the more that you're going to have a greater ROI typically from an investor developer side.
How many bedrooms can you make an ADU? Is there a maximum, or is it just, it's whatever size it is and whatever you can fit in there?
Yeah, so it's I don't believe there's a maximum, but it'd be hard to fit more than probably 4 bedrooms within 1,200 square feet. Those would be really small bedrooms. So of course you have to have, the closet, Most of them are three. Most of them are three
Two
bedroom.
to, two to three?
Two to three on the larger side. On the smaller side, you're going to have more of the studios and the one bedrooms.
What about rental restrictions? Is there anything that's kind of a common theme amongst most of the jurisdictions, or is it all over the board?
It's all over the board. It's all over. So it really depends on if you're doing a long-term rental or short-term rental. There's a lot of stipulations on short-term rentals. So we'll kind of leave that out of the conversation because that's going to vary, a lot.
But so long-term, are there some common themes?
Yeah, long-term, you typically will need to be owner-occupied. So you'll need to live at the main residence. The parking's always a thing.
I've heard, at least in California, where they're really pushing ADUs, that owner-occupied is not required anymore. Is that accurate or not accurate?
That's accurate. That's accurate for many of the jurisdictions.
How can a customer visualize their dream ADU with Ohana?
Our site is specifically designed to leverage and utilize tech tools to help you visualize and design your ADU. But the first step would just be looking through the portfolio. There are over 40 plans that you can take a look at. Just take a look at the pictures and see, you can filter it based on the size, based on the number of bedrooms you need, the footprint that you're looking for, if you need a 2-story or 1-story. So that's step one, is to take a look at, what's on the site. Step two would probably be to download the app. We have many of the models on the app, and you can just go to your yard or your lot and place it and say, oh, this looks great, or I don't really like this so much. So that's a really easy way to do that. The next step would be to use a 3D configurator. So that's really going to allow you to nail down your design, nail down your budget, nail down, what exactly it is that you want to see out of that ADU, depending on your uses. And then you can engage the AI throughout that process to help you guide through that. The last one, a lot of people don't use this, but this is by far the most immersive one, is the VR headsets. Most people don't have it, so it's not something that's widely used. But if you do have access to it, you will get a better view of the home any other way, because it's full scale. You also get that with the AR app. You can walk into it and you can look at the full scale. But with the VR, basically, when you go through the 3D configurator, a link is sent to you, and you can open that link up on your VR headset, and that has all your chosen materials. So whether it's the metal siding in gray and your countertop in Calcutta quartz or whatever, that's all programmed into the link. So you're able to see all of your selections and your choices in full scale, and you can walk through the home and you can see, okay, well, this window, I don't really like the placement of this window, or I'm not loving the backsplash. So you can it's really good for catching design issues up front.
It seems super useful. If you were building your own ADU, would you absolutely do that, or might you do that if it was your own? I
do it all the time, even in other people's, constantly on my VR headset checking designs. Okay. So because you don't catch things on the screen all the time, because it can really have this much space. When you're standing in the midst of it, you can catch things that you would not catch otherwise. Right. So I would hands down recommend that. Get your hands on. They're not that expensive now. It's not like years ago when they were thousands of dollars. Yeah, they're not that expensive
compared to the overall cost of an ADU. It's nothing to catch something early. Does Ohana build ADUs? Do you refer general contractors? How does that work?
So we believe that ADUs are best constructed by local contractors. So we have a very robust network of experienced-embedded ADU contractors that we refer our full service builds to. So there's a number of ways that you can build an ADU. One would be the DIY way, and number two would be the owner managed way, where you're managing the subcontractors, and then the third one would be the full service build. So the full service build would be presented to a number of local ADUs within your particular area, local ADU builders within your particular area. So we're able to maximize the price competition and the professional service. So we're able to get a number of bids back from that. We actually have a number of contractors that use our platform themselves for their ADU clients because it's more efficient, and it creates a better communication between the client and the builder, so they're all on the same page quickly.
So you've got a number of contractors familiar with this that that as long as I live in a fairly common place, you probably have a pretty good referral for me. Is that
Yes,
accurate?
that's completely accurate. Yes. So
Okay.
we've been doing this for 5 years now. So we've gone to know quite a few contractors, building companies in the area, in a number of different areas, not just in California, but we have quite a few in Washington, Oregon, Texas. I know just had some legislation that came across that they're passing that are helping ADU builds. We have a number of builders there. We have a number of builders across the nation, actually.
Okay, so we're going to use Ohana to design it, and then you can either take it from there or Ohana can refer you to somebody that can take it from there.
Exactly.
Want to learn more? Check out these videos.